Democratic Congressman Marc Veasey of Fort Worth. Thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Great to see you, Jack.
Good to see you. So I wanted to start with the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling today on the Louisiana case, in effect, further restricting the Voting Rights Act and the use of race when it comes to drawing congressional districts. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think it's a very sad day for America. I think it's particularly a sad day for Black Americans in the South. I think that in states that were part of the old Confederacy, like Texas, the impact will be felt here the greatest. Not only in congressional seats, but when it comes to state legislative seats, when it comes to county commissioner seats, the way the city council lines are drawn. Now that the Republicans have been basically given carte blanche to redraw seats with Black population and Black communities, more importantly, any way that they feel, then you're essentially back to a pre-1960 Voting Rights Act posture. And I think that it's sad. We've always known that Alito and Clarence Thomas was for this. Alito and Judge Roberts, for that matter, they've always hated the VRA since they were baby lawyers, and the country was basically, you're fresh off of Jim Crow. They hated it back then, and so I want people to know that, because one of the things that you're going to hear is that, oh, the country has gotten better, and you're going to hear some sentiment like that from the court in interviews that they give. But the fact of the matter is that they're not being honest when they say that. They have literally hated the Voting Rights Act since they were baby lawyers. And when they both served in the Reagan administration, they were very, very hostile towards the Voting Rights Act and anything dealing with civil rights when they were attorneys that worked in that administration.
So what is your biggest fear when it comes to the congressional seats and the state legislative seats in Texas now, as far as when they are redrawn after the 2030 census, unless there could be other changes before then?
Yeah, I think my biggest concern is that, again, the posture that we're going back to, which is a pre-1965 posture, which says that you can draw these lines to maximize the political gains for conservative whites across the state, but that you cannot take race into consideration when it comes to Blacks. And the fact of the matter is, and again, Alito knows this, Roberts knows this, the other four Supreme Court justices that ruled in the case today on the concurring side, they all know this. You can't separate race from politics in states like Texas and the South, especially. And so they know this, they understand this. And what I think that you're going to see is before, when there were rules, they had to make sure that they followed Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. They had to make sure they followed rules with Section 2. And now that 5 and 2 are both effectively gone, what you're going to see is just, anything goes. And we know this bunch down in the state legislature, they're not shy. They're going to try to push the envelope as far as they can. And about time that you can even prove discrimination, it's going to be too late. The damage will have been done. And so that's my biggest fear, is that now there's going to be no legal recourse, and the bar is going to be set so high that, again, we'll be back into a pre-1965 posture that says that you have to really, really go out of your way to prove that you're being discriminated against. Otherwise, we're going to give the people that are racist the benefit of the doubt.
And I know that the Supreme Court has said partisan gerrymandering is totally fine. What you seem to be saying is that they will hide behind partisan gerrymandering.
Right, exactly. They're going to hide behind partisan gerrymandering, and they're going to say, no, and I'm speaking in a third party now, a third voice here, but they're going to say, oh, no, we're not discriminating, or we're not trying to draw these districts to favor white conservatives. We're trying to draw these districts to favor Republicans. And that's what they're going to say. They're going to make it that simple, and they're going to spit it out that way. And they're going to have people on Facebook and Instagram repeating it that way. But again, we know throughout history, you cannot separate race, particularly in the South, when it comes to everything that we do. Race is taken into consideration where we live, what school districts we pick. It's literally woven into what we do each and every day, especially in the old Confederacy, when it comes to redrawing these lines and when it comes to politics. And so, no, you cannot separate the two. But of course, that's what they're going to try and to hide behind. And again, you're always going to have an Alito or a Clarence Thomas that is willing to give people that are racist the benefit of the doubt. And so I think for the Black community at large, that we have tough roads ahead, particularly for Black and brown communities in places like Texas. It is going to be tough sledding for us here on out when it comes to the redrawing of these lines and having our voices represented, not just the voices of people that are white and conservative. But you're going to absolutely see more. You're going to see more power given to a place like, let's take, for instance, Alito or Southlake. You're going to see more power given to places like that versus communities like where I live in East Fort Worth. That's the bottom line, and they are going to definitely hide behind partisan politics. But it is about empowering people that are conservative and white.
All right, so let me read to you what Senator Cruz told me today.
Yeah.
He said that I think it vindicates the 14th Amendment, the Equal Protection Clause. It also vindicates the 15th Amendment, the right to vote, and the principle that the court decided the case upon today is that government should not be discriminating based on race. That is a principle we fought a civil war over, and it is a principle that is a foundational principle of equality. I think the Supreme Court's right. This business of divvying voters up by race is a sordid business, and it is a business that is directly contrary to the protections of the Constitution that prevent government from being in the race business. What's your reaction?
I would say a couple of things on that is that he knows better. He understands politics and how districts are redrawn better than anyone else. I've heard him argue cases before the Supreme Court when he was Solicitor General, and of course he knows better. He knows better than anybody that race is always taken into consideration when it comes to redrawing these lines, and he understands that in Texas that it is about maximizing the number of conservative whites that you put in districts. I've heard him basically argue that before the Supreme Court. And so he's never been for anything that's pro-civil rights. He does not have a record of being supportive of anything that is pro-civil rights. I've never heard Ted Cruz speak about how good Reconstruction was for the country. I've never heard Ted Cruz speak about how good the 1964 Civil Rights Act was for the country, about how the 1965 Voting Rights Act was for the country. I've never heard him refute any of the anti-voter and voter suppression tactics that the man that he clerked for, Chief Justice Rehnquist. I've never heard him push back on any of the terrible things that Rehnquist has done. And so I'm not surprised that he would take that posture. He's doing what he thinks is politically expedient for him, and that is to, again, make sure that that African Americans in this country no longer have the protections of the Voting Rights Act, and he thinks that is what is best for him politically. So that's the stance that he's taken. But I don't think that he speaks sincerely at all.
I've seen some people say it is time for Congress to ban gerrymandering. A, do you agree with that? B, does that have a chance of passing in this Congress?
No, I don't think that it has a chance of passing in this Congress. I really, Jack, what I will tell you is that I believe that we need to have a system in this country where politicians no longer have anything to do with our electoral system. That would obviously take a constitutional amendment. But when it comes to reapportionment, when it comes to passing laws dealing with voter integrity and the use of identification, polling places, I think that all of those things now need to be done by an independent body. We need to find people similar to the commission that President Carter was a part of when he and our fellow Texan, Jim Baker, that lives in Houston, when they formed the Carter-Baker Commission. We need to come up with something like that where you have a group of Democrats and a group of Republicans on both sides. Neither one can outvote each other, and come up with a new system when it comes to everything that has to do with our election system. Because if you leave it up to Republicans which is, again, what's happening in this country right now. They are going to do everything that they can in order to make sure that they maximize conservative white voters when it comes to reapportionment because they don't want to do any outreach to black voters. When have we ever heard Ted Cruz? When have we ever heard John Cornyn? When have we ever heard anyone that's a Republican in our Texas congressional delegation come up with something or some sort of an idea that is championed by the black community? Not something that they think is good for the black community, because they will tell you, oh, I'm for school choice, but that's not what the black community wants. When have you ever heard them champion something that a majority of black people in our state want? And they don't want to have to do that. And that's why we really need to have a new system put in place that elevates all voices. Or again, we're going to continue to live in this caste system that's based on race and identity that tries to promote and keep the people that are in the upper caste above the people that are in the lower and middle caste. And that's where we're at right now. And it's, to me, this today's ruling is just further proof that there's just way too much politics. This was a very political ruling. Again, Chief Justice Roberts and Alito have been drooling and dreaming of doing this since the Reagan administration, and even before when they were baby lawyers. And so I'm appalled by what happened today, and I think that is terrible for the United States. And I worry about people that are my son's age that are in college and they're trying to see, are they going to truly be considered equal in this country, or are they going to be subjects of the people that always get the benefit of the doubt?
So let me ask you, because another ruling this week by the Supreme Court made final the Texas 2025 maps for the midterm elections this year. And as I understand it, the case is still going to go back to the district court for a trial, likely next year. And so I'm wondering, how concerned are you that the ruling in the Louisiana case is going to impact the case for Texas?
Oh, I think the cake is made. Again, I'm going to, try and remain hopeful, but I think that the cake is made. I think that this Supreme Court has basically said that that if you're conservative and you live in the South, you can pretty much draw the lines however you want to. Yeah, I mean, I really do think that when it comes to politics in the state, I think that that this is going to set back Black and Latino voters probably for decades to come.
And what do you make of the impact that this is going to have on the midterms, if any?
I'm not sure what type of impact it's going to have on the midterms. Obviously, it's going to impact some seats. But if President Trump is still at the last political poll that I saw had him at like 33, 34%, somewhere right around there. Obviously, if he's at that low of a level, he's going to lose in places that, Republicans never thought they would lose before. And I will also tell you that I remember in 2010, I was in the state legislature. We had 74 Democrats and 76 Republicans, and we actually lost a seat where Obama got 54% of the vote. That would normally be a pretty, relatively safe seat, but that was how big the wave washed up that we actually lost someone that had won their state legislative district with 54% of the vote. And I don't know what Obama's rating was back in 2010. I don't remember, but I think that Trump's is much lower, and anything can happen under that type of scenario. And so I don't think that it's going to impact who's going to be in the majority. I believe the Democrats are going to be in the majority when the new Congress convenes in 2027.
So let me ask you about the shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah.
I know President Trump praised the Secret Service for protecting everyone, certainly himself and the First Lady, the Vice President, and the other dignitaries there and the whole crowd. But I did read multiple reports from reporters who were attending who said they thought security was lax. They did not have their tickets checked against a master list. They didn't have their IDs checked. They didn't go through metal detectors. So when you hear that, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, if people didn't go through metal detectors, I think that's crazy. I mean, I'll give the Secret Service and the security details credit on stopping him from trying to run through the metal detectors the way that he did, and for them acting as quickly as they did. They certainly deserve applause for that. But if people weren't having their IDs checked, if people weren't going through metal detectors and they were able to walk into that room with the president, cabinet members, senators, House members, and other guests, yeah, then that is absolutely not good. And there needs to be an investigation into that to see why those security lapses took place.
Why does this keep happening? These assassination attempts on the president.
That is a good question. I think that if you look at what's happening right now in our country with social media, if you look at what's happening in our country when it comes to how we dialogue with each other about politics, I think that it's just getting worse and worse. I don't think that it's necessarily anything new. I think that what we're seeing is more and more of this manifesting itself because of this new culture we live in, to where politics, unfortunately, instead of people really being thoughtful about it and really thinking about what they do and what they say, we've devolved down into 140 characters, 30 seconds or less, and we want people to make their minds up the same way how we would during a football game. I mean, I can tell you that if you give me the choice between the Cowboys and the Eagles, I'm always going to root for the Cowboys. And politics is just more complicated than that. It's not as black and white as a football game we sit back and we watch for enjoyment on Sundays. It's much more serious than that. It has to do with how this country is going to be governed, what the outlook of the country is going to look like in the future. But instead, it's really turned into an us versus them, almost sporting like contest. And it's just, we're in a very unhealthy place. And so I don't ever want to see anything like this happen again. But we need to figure out a way how to do better. And all of us need to figure out a way how to do better. On the left, there should never be any rhetoric like, why isn't anybody doing anything about it? That was something that I repeatedly heard, and I never used that phrasing myself, but that should be phrasing that should never be used. Though the way how you do something about it is that you win the next midterm. That's how you do something about it. That's the only thing that you can do about it at the end of the day, is win the next midterm. When it comes to the president making statements about the death of Rob Reiner, and when Mueller passed, you can't you can't be the leader of the United States and make comments like that and not think that behavior doesn't breed behavior. People watch the president of the United States for for everything, including moral clarity, and the leader has to be someone that refrains from saying things about people that they don't like in that sort of fashion. I'm certain that there were people that George W. Bush and Barack Obama and George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton didn't like that passed away, but I guarantee you they never said anything like that. And we have to, everybody has to figure out some sort of way how to do better without all this name calling, without all this shouting, and without having to use Twitter and use social media and 30 seconds or less to make a determination on how something is happening around the world. We just have to figure out a way how to get past that. We're in a very rough time right now.
A judge stopped construction, issued a ruling against the president's authority to build a ballroom at the White House. And I'm wondering, the president said because of the shooting, it's proof that a large ballroom is needed. Or what do you say to that?
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. A large ballroom is not needed. We need better security mechanisms put in place. When we have retreats on the Democratic side and the Republican side, we have to have the entire property, the entire hotel property to ourselves. It's part of the security protocol. There should be similar protocols when something like the White House Correspondents' Dinner takes place. Having a ballroom that doesn't even fit in with the architecture of the White House is absolutely not the way to go. And as someone that enjoys history and someone that enjoys the beauty of period architecture, that thing that they are attaching to the White House is ugly. It does not fit in aesthetically. It is not pleasing at all. And I always hear conservatives talk about erasing history, and you can't erase history this, and you can't erase history that. Well, putting that monstrosity on the grounds of the White House is essentially erasing history. It does not fit in. It is not. It is not periodic correct, and it has no business being on the grounds of the White House. And so, no, that's not the answer. The answer is better security protocols to make sure that individuals like that guy that came all the way from California can never get anywhere near an event like that ever again.
And I have to ask you about DHS funding
Yeah,
because the executive orders that the president wrote and put in place to pay DHS employees is going to run out.
yeah, yeah.
And so, how concerned are you about that? And is it time to get DHS funded?
Yeah, it's absolutely time to get DHS funded. There's a bipartisan bill that has passed the Senate already, and of course, the Speaker, who absolutely is such a disappointment when it comes to leadership, and he forgets what King Charles, I think, was trying to teach him yesterday when he was speaking on the floor about the fact that we have checks and balances in our system, and it is his job to make sure that we pass a bill that and then we have a bill on the House floor that will fund DHS. There's already a precedent that's been set in the Senate, and we need to pass that bill. That's what can pass. That's what will be overwhelmingly bipartisan, is if we have that bill and can send it to the president's desk. It will get our DHS workers paid, including all of our TSA workers. And I had a TSA worker just stop me just the other day. And that's the way that you do that, so we can work out all these other things with ICE. We should not hold everyone else hostage over ICE. We need to make sure that we get that package funded, and that we get everything done that we needed to get done while we work out the fact and figure out how we prevent what happened in Minnesota from ever occurring again. And that's how you fix that. That is what Trump is trying to do is it's wrong. It doesn't make any sense. It's not going to get the votes needed that he would like in the Senate. And he needs to sit down. He needs to be a leader. And if Mike Johnson is not going to step up and be a leader, then Trump needs to sit Mike Johnson down and tell him, sir, this is what you're going to pass and send to my desk, and we're going to get this done. And we will figure out the ICE piece at a later time and date.
We will leave it there. Democratic Congressman Marc Veasey of Fort Worth, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
We appreciate it.